Meghan and Harry they've announced a trip to Australia, with the Duchess due to appear at a women-only retreat in Sydney. You're thinking you've got to get away from it all. It's going to be life's tough. You're going to your retreat, and suddenly Meghan turns up.
They were once the golden couple of the monarchy, celebrated, adored, untouchable. Harry and Meghan arrived in Sydney in 2018 to crowds, cameras, and headlines that promised a new era for the crown. Fast forward 8 years, and the welcome is gone. No red carpets, no fanfare, just petitions, debt-ridden events, and a backlash echoing across the Commonwealth. How did a couple who embodied the future of royalty become a flashpoint for controversy, money, and public outrage? How does a luxury wellness retreat become a battleground for the value of royal titles, and who profits from them? Today, we're peeling back the headlines to reveal the real story. The decisions, the finances, the psychology, and the question everyone is asking. When you walk away from royal duty, do you also walk away from the monarchy's legacy? The answer is unfolding right now, and it's far from simple. Sussex retreat controversy. Let's start with the facts, because this story has been buried under so much noise that the actual details are getting lost. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, is confirmed to appear at a 3-day event called the Her Best Life Retreat, scheduled for April 17th through 19th, 2026, at the Intercontinental Sydney at Coogee Beach. The retreat is described as a luxury women's wellness weekend featuring speaker sessions, a gala dinner, wellness activities, and a personal Q&A with Meghan herself. It is organized by Australian publicist Gemma O'Neill through her events company, Besties Australia, which she co-founded with radio presenter Jackie Henderson in 2022. The event has reportedly sold out, with approximately 300 women attending. The ticket prices range from around $2,700 to $3,200 Australian dollars for VIP packages, which include 2 nights accommodation, meals, drinks, front row seating at the gala dinner, and a group photo with the Duchess. The connection to Meghan was reportedly facilitated by Marcus Anderson, a long-standing friend of the Duchess, who famously helped arrange her first meeting with Prince Harry back in 2016. O'Neill described Anderson as instrumental in making the event happen, suggesting Meghan's involvement was arranged through personal networks rather than commercial talent agencies. Now, here's where the story gets complicated. O'Neill's separate talent management firm, Gemmy Agency, entered voluntary liquidation in November 2025. Our administrators revealed the company owed more than 543,000 Australian dollars to the Australian Taxation Office. O'Neill reportedly informed administrators in February that she was unable to make repayment contributions, citing limited income and no personal savings. The insolvency report also references a loan of over $18,000 made from the collapsed agency to Besties Australia itself, though O'Neill has reportedly disputed the accuracy of that accounting entry. On top of the financial questions, the venue has its own issues. The Intercontinental's much-promoted ocean-facing infinity pool is reportedly still under construction, along with the spa, bar, and leisure deck. For an event charging over $3,000 per person and billing itself as the ultimate girls' weekend, these are not minor details. And then there's the beach. Coogee has been battling a pollution issue since 2024, with foul-smelling deposits washing ashore for over 16 months, a problem scientists traced back to a fatberg lodged in Sydney's sewer system. Despite all of this, Meghan's team has confirmed she remains committed to appearing. The event is going ahead, and on paper, it has sold out. But the controversy is no longer about the retreat itself. It's about what the retreat represents. Royal duty versus private brand. Here's the part of this story that actually matters, not because a petition changes law, but because it reveals something about how public sentiment has shifted in ways that the Sussexes may not have fully anticipated. And when you lay out the timeline, the speed of this shift is striking.
A spokesman for the couple responded saying it's a moot point. The trip is being funded privately.
The petition was launched back in November 2025 by an advocacy group called Beyond Australia, months before the trip was even formally announced. It sat quietly for weeks, gathering signatures at a slow drip. But when the details of the trip went public, when people saw the $3,000 ticket prices and the luxury wellness branding, something caught fire. By mid-March, it had crossed 4,000 signatures. Within days, it was past 30,000. As of this week, it has surpassed 35,000 and shows no signs of slowing down. The petition's language is blunt and unambiguous, and it describes the trip as a private commercial venture, argues that Harry and Meghan no longer represent the Crown since stepping back from duties in 2020, and demands that all costs, security, logistics, government coordination be borne entirely by private funding. It frames the issue squarely against the cost of living crisis gripping ordinary Australians, referencing rising grocery bills, fuel prices, mortgage stress driven by interest rate hikes, and increasing energy costs. The petition even features an image of the couple alongside the Australian flag, with the caption, "We don't want you here." And then something unusual happened. The Sussexes responded directly. Their spokesperson told the Daily Mail that the trip is being funded privately, calling the petition a moot point and questioning what it hopes to achieve. And they then pushed back harder, noting that approximately 26.5 million Australians, 99.98% of the population, have not signed it, and suggesting that by the petition's own logic, those millions must therefore agree with taxpayers picking up the tab. It was a sharp, almost sarcastic rebuttal. And it backfired. The petition organizers quoted the spokesperson's words directly on the change.org page, using them as fuel to drive even more signatures. The response became the story. But the petition exposed something more uncomfortable than a funding debate. It exposed a gap in clarity that nobody has been able to close. The Department of the Prime Minister and the Department of Home Affairs have both stated they have no involvement in Harry and Meghan's visit. The Australian Federal Police offered nothing, simply noting it does not comment on protection arrangements, so the trip is privately funded, according to the Sussexes. But nobody in the Australian government will confirm who is covering security. Nobody will say whether public police resources will be deployed for transit or crowd management. The ambiguity itself has become the problem. In the absence of a clear answer, the public fills the silence with suspicion. And that suspicion lands differently in 2026 than it would have in 2018. Compare the two visits, and the contrast is almost painful. When Harry and Meghan toured Australia 8 years ago as working royals, they were given a police escort and stayed at the Governor-General's residence overlooking Sydney Harbour.
As Harry and Meghan prepare to land down under, one thing is clear: all eyes will be on Australia to see whether the Sussex.
Meghan announced her pregnancy during the trip. Her crowds mobbed them with genuine affection. The public paid for security because the public received something in return: a functioning extension of the British Crown carrying out its diplomatic duty. This time is fundamentally different. Harry is booked to deliver a keynote at the Interreg Psychosocial Safety Summit in Melbourne for what reports describe as a mid-five-figure speaking fee. Meghan is headlining a sold-out ticketed retreat. These are commercial and professional engagements. The Sussex team says the trip also includes philanthropic elements, which may well be true. But the ticket prices, the branding, the luxury positioning, all of it reads as enterprise, not service. Royal journalist Tom Sykes warned the couple will need thick skins on this trip, and noting they are no longer assured of a warm welcome. And that's the real story the petition tells. It's not about 35,000 angry signatures. It's about the 6-year gray zone the Sussexes have been operating in, the space between royal and private, between duty and brand, between the title they kept and the job they left, finally becoming too narrow to stand in. Australia didn't create that tension, but Australia is the place where the tension became impossible to ignore. Royals for sale. To understand why a luxury wellness retreat in Sydney has become one of the most talked about royal controversies of 2026, you have to look at the year the Sussexes have just lived through. See, because what's happening in Australia isn't a standalone story. It's the latest act in a very messy and very public transformation of two of the most scrutinized figures in the world. Earlier this year, Netflix publicly stepped away from its streaming deal with Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand, As Ever. Once touted as a multi-million-dollar partnership that could redefine the Sussexes' media presence, the collaboration quietly unraveled. Variety and other outlets reported communication disagreements, creative challenges, and a lack of new content ideas as key factors. The exclusive deal, which had already ended in 2025, was not renewed, leaving both a major revenue stream and a major cultural platform behind. For a couple who had leaned heavily on media projects to shape their post-royal narrative, that loss was significant. Here then came another headline storm. Royal biographer Tom Bower released excerpts from a forthcoming book in The Times making explosive claims about internal hostilities within the royal family. The Sussexes' response, calling the material deranged conspiracy and melodrama, was unusually combative for a story involving the monarchy. Instead of quieting controversy, the rebuttal amplified it, reminding the world that this was not just a family disagreement.
Harry and Meghan's tour of Australia to be deprived of all public funding,
but a public feud. At the same time, key members of the Sussex Support Network exited. Both their co-executive director James Holt and Chief Communications Officer Meredith Maines stepped away within months of each other. For an already high-profile operation under media scrutiny, losing senior leadership quickly raised questions about stability and direction. Meanwhile, on financial reports from Archewell, now Archewell Philanthropies, showed a sharp drop in donations from about $5.3 million in 2023 to roughly $2.1 million in 2024, fueling speculation that the foundation's momentum had stalled. Set against that backdrop, the Sydney Her Best Life retreat no longer looks like a passion project. To many, it looks like a commercial lifeline, a way to leverage royal celebrity in a space that directly pays. And although there's nothing inherently unethical about leveraging fame, the optics matter. Here's where the tension becomes real. The retreat is clearly a professional engagement. Ticket prices range from roughly 2,700 Australian dollars to 3,200 Australian dollars for VIP packages, including accommodation, meals, and even a photo with Meghan. Meanwhile, see parts of the event venue, including the ocean-facing infinity pool and leisure deck, are reportedly still under construction. For many observers, paying premium prices for what looks like unfinished or aspirational luxury deepens the sense that this is less about empowerment and more about commerce. But it's not just pricing or venue issues that have people talking. It's the question of what a royal title means in the modern age. That's where Prince William's reported private concerns enter the frame. Sources close to the Prince of Wales have suggested that William is increasingly vocal about preserving the integrity of royal honors and preventing them from being commercially exploited. This isn't palace gossip. It reflects a long-standing tension within constitutional monarchies. How, or if, the titles can be used once someone steps away from official duties. In 2020, Harry and Meghan negotiated an agreement that allowed them to retain the titles Duke and Duchess of Sussex while ceasing to be working royals. At the time, it was seen as a compromise to preserve family peace. But 6 years later, that compromise has morphed into a gray zone that no one has clearly defined. Can a duchess use her title to sell premium retreat tickets? Is that different from using it to write a book? Where is the line between personal enterprise and the commercialization of public honor? At its core, this is not just a story about tickets, events, or Instagram petitions. It's about the unresolved question of how royal titles should function once someone leaves frontline duty, and whether the space between royal and private has finally become too narrow to stand in any longer. Monarchy under pressure. And this brings us to the most fascinating dynamic in this entire story. Because while Harry and Meghan are in crisis management mode, Prince William is having arguably the best year of his royal career. His public approval sits at 74%, making him and Catherine the most popular royals in Britain. He and the Princess of Wales are about to become grantors of royal warrants in the spring of 2026, a significant constitutional step toward the authority of kingship. He has been described by insiders as being eased into his future role as monarch, on taking on increased diplomatic responsibilities, representing the crown at international events, and overseeing key family operations at Balmoral and Sandringham. His Earthshot prize continues to grow. His family has relocated to Forest Lodge in Windsor,
Princess of Wales, Prince of Wales, the royal family, and in particular her children at this difficult time,
signaling a future monarchy that is family-centered, purpose-driven, and less reliant on the grandeur of Buckingham Palace. The contrast with his younger brother could not be starker, and it's a contrast that the public is noticing. William's approach to the Sussex situation has been, by all accounts, strategic rather than emotional. He is not giving interviews about his brother. He is not responding to provocations on social media. He is simply doing the work, showing up, being visible, and letting the comparison speak for itself. When William finishes a meeting on cost of living initiatives or housing reform, and the next headline is about a $3,000 retreat with an unfinished pool, the juxtaposition writes itself. But there's a deeper dimension to this that goes beyond optics. William has reportedly been pushing, within the confines of the palace, for clearer guidelines on how royal titles can be used by those who have stepped away from active duty. The 2020 agreement, which allowed Harry and Meghan to retain their Duke and Duchess titles while departing as working royals, was always a compromise. It was designed to preserve family harmony in a moment of crisis. But 6 years later, the question of what those titles are actually for has never been satisfactorily answered. Can a duchess sell VIP dinner seats for $3,000? And is that different from a duchess launching a jam brand? Where is the line between personal enterprise and commercial exploitation of a public honor? These are not simple questions. They are constitutional, legal, and deeply personal. And the Australian retreat has forced them into the open in a way that nobody can ignore any longer. Reports suggest William has been consulting with legal advisors about what options exist. Whether that leads to formal restrictions, a renegotiation of the 2020 agreement, or simply a louder public statement from the palace remains unclear. But the trajectory is unmistakable. The era of the gray zone, where Harry and Meghan could operate in the space between royal and private, appears to be closing. History is not written in neat chapters. It unfolds in moments like this: disagreements, retreats, decisions that ripple far beyond the headlines. Harry and Meghan move forward. William prepares for a crown that has never been heavier. And the British monarchy itself waits, watching, adapting, surviving. The question is no longer just about duty, loyalty, or legacy. It's about choice, about consequence, about what it truly means to belong to an institution that demands everything and forgives little. And so we are left with the question that will not go away. When the past and the future collide, who really shapes the story? And who gets to walk away? The next chapter is already being written. Are you ready to see how it unfolds?